It's overwhelmingly obvious to anybody that studies it. The entire superstructure of Western civilization is based on occult astrology, occult symbols, mystical symbols, words and terms. But the masses of the people have no idea in the world because, and the reason why the people in Western civilization do not know any of this, and it's foreign to hearing, most people hearing me, this stuff is totally foreign. And I understand that. It's because this kind of subject, which I have been looking at for 50 years, this kind of subject has nothing to do with basketball, football, tennis, golf balls, soccer, nothing to do with all the silly games that our masters have given us kids to play with. Give them a ball and let them go out and play so that they don't think too much about what the bosses are doing behind the scenes. Well, I never bought into this, go out and play ball, even as a child. I didn't want to go out and play ball when friends were coming over to visit my family and they would tell us kids, go out and play ball. That to me, even as a kid, I knew. It means the adults want to talk about something and they don't want you children hearing it. I wanted to stay. I would always tell my dad, I don't want to go out and play ball. I want to know what you guys are talking about in the front room when the women are out in the kitchen. I want to hear what the men are talking about because that's where the action is. So I don't want to be out watching a ball game while the people who claim to be our masters and own us are playing games with our lives behind the scenes and manipulating us, and we are so stupid we buy into it. I have never bought into stupidity and ignorance. I've always known that there's more to the story than meets the eye.
And Jacques Cousteau, UNESCO courier, on November 1991 said, "The United Nations goal is to reduce population selectively by encouraging abortion, forced sterilization, and control human reproduction, and regards 2/3 of the human population as excess baggage, with 350,000 people to be eliminated per day." And the master of them all, Bertrand Russell, in his Impact of Science on Society, had this to say: "At present, the population of the world is increasing at about 58,000 per diem. War so far has had no very great effect on this increase, which continued throughout each of the world wars. War has hitherto been disappointing in this respect, but perhaps bacteriological war may prove effective. If a Black Death could spread throughout the world in every generation, survivors could procreate freely without making the world too full. The state of affairs might be unpleasant, but what of it?" We have Prince Philip, quoted in the Deutsche Presse Agentur in August 1988, said, "In the event I am reborn, I would like to return as a deadly virus in order to contribute something to solve overpopulation." Now, the Institute of Human Virology, we read that according to top pharmacologist Dr. Robert B. Strecker, MD, PhD, the leading scientist of the project, that AIDS virus was created at Fort Detrick, but was based on research first conducted at the Lebedev Institute near Moscow, which was founded by the world's leading virologist, Gurvich. The number of those infected doubles every month. Over 23 million Americans are already affected. In the Strecker Memorandum, in the 30s and 40s, the Public Health Service openly experimented and monitored black men infected with syphilis in Tuskegee, Alabama. Even after penicillin was discovered, these men remained infected and were not treated. Hence, their wives and sons were likewise infected. These incidents are recorded in detail in the book Bad Blood by James Jones. Between 1959 and 1970, there were over 300 biological experiments conducted on U.S. citizens unbeknownst to them. The extent of the program is revealed in the book A Higher Form of Killing by Paxman and Harris. That's from Dr. Robert Strecker's The Strecker Memorandum. Now here it is on DVD. This doctor, Dr. Robert Strecker, conclusively proves that AIDS was vector-borne, that AIDS was a man-made designer disease to create havoc in the world, exactly according to the policies of Bertrand Russell and Aldous Huxley and his coterie. This is absolute compulsory viewing. In our dreams, we have limitless resources, and people yield themselves with perfect docility to our molding hands. Unhampered by tradition, we work our own goodwill on a grateful and responsive rule of folk. The task we set before ourselves is a very beautiful one, to train these people as we find them to a perfectly ideal life just where they are. And Major John Rawling Rees of the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations, a major mind control syndicate in England, says this: the patient must remain unaware of the specific intentions and purposes of the doctor administering the treatment. Building a society in which it is possible for any member of any social group to be treated without resort to legal means, and even if they do not desire such treatment. It should be clear by now, at this stage, that we have in fact an official history and we have an occult history of the world, occult history of the ancient world, and we also have a occult history of America. Arthur S. Miller of George Washington University says, those who formally rule take their signals and commands not from the electorate as a body, but from a small group of men plus a few women. This group will be called the establishment. It exists even though that existence is stoutly denied. It is one of the secrets of the American social order. A second secret is the fact that the existence of the establishment, the ruling class, is not supposed to be discussed. Now, in the American Oath of Allegiance, we hear reference to protecting America from enemies both foreign and domestic, which implies, does it not, that there can be domestic enemies? Well, we can be sure that there are plenty of domestic enemies. Let's take a look and find out who they are. One of the most powerful of all the secret societies given the agenda and operating in the world is known by the name of the Illuminati. There's terms that they use, these secret societies, and then there's terms that their historians and critics also use, terms that they use within the lodges and terms and names that people on the outside know. But the Illuminati is a very powerful organization. On the left is a picture of its creator, Adam Weishaupt. And Adam Weishaupt, after his passing on, the mantle went to the Italian revolutionary Giuseppe Mazzini, and Giuseppe Mazzini passed it on to the American Albert Pike, whose picture is on the right there. Albert Pike is the creator of the Scottish Rite Freemasonic system, or at least the bringer to America of the Scottish Rite Freemasonic system. Now, Adam Weishaupt's symbol, the original symbol of the Illuminati, was the pyramid with the eye at the top, and the term New World Order, or Novus Ordo Seclorum, around the bottom of the pyramid. That was the symbol that was found on the documents of the Illuminati and is now on the American $1 bill. The Illuminati was officially founded on May 1st, 1776, and America's official birthday is July 4th, 1776. Interestingly, Adolf Hitler's second book was called The New World Order. Now, this term, New World Order, is found at the bottom of the pyramid. It is another secret society slogan. It is not a political slogan. Adolf Hitler's first book was Mein Kampf, and the second one was The World Order, or The New World Order. Now, Masons work in very ingenious ways in order to conceal their identity. If you take the symbol of the pyramid and draw around it, take a ruler and draw around it a six-pointed star or hexagram or Star of David, which is easy to do because the pyramid is already the upward pointing triangle, you will find that at the vertices, at the apexes of the Star of David, that's at the 6 points, it spells out the word M-A-S-O-N, that's Mason. And of course it shows a pyramid, which Masons build. George Washington is seen here standing in the Masonic Hall with a Masonic G above his head, and he's wearing the Masonic apron. So George Washington and many other elites and presidents and so forth are members of these secret fraternities. Everyone knows about the Lincoln Memorial, but travelers and tourists are not as aware that round the corner from that is a very strange, to say the least, image of George Washington, one of the founding fathers. He's seen here naked to the waist, his arms in this mysterious pose. Of course, it's mysterious to tourists. It's not mysterious to members of secret societies, because they would recognize this pose. It is an occult symbol. Here is the god worshipped by the Knights Templars, Baphomet. Open any book on the occult and you'll usually see this symbol of the deity, stripped to the waist, with the hands in that pose. Baphomet is the god of the Freemasons and of the Rosicrucians. Here's an image of Baphomet with the rose cross and the serpent on the globe, being worshipped by the members of the fraternity. And in the book of Acts, we have a reference to Satan. I am the offspring of the serpent nature and a corrupter's son. I am the son of he who sits upon the throne and has dominion over the creation beneath the heavens. So the serpents have dominion over the heavens and over the earth. Here is the original symbol that was meant to be on the dollar bill before they came up with the eagle. It was actually a triangle surrounded by serpents. America, as we saw earlier, is literally the land of the serpents. They probably thought that would be too obvious and settled for other symbols instead, like the eagle. Here is the first US flag, which shows the stars, again Sirius, and the all-seeing eye radiating outward. So the eye, the Freemasonic symbols of the stars and the all-seeing eye and the pyramidical shape were very much in the minds of the original founding fathers. Now the number 13 appears on the dollar bill quite a lot. There's 13 levels of the pyramid, and the 13, which appears on the dollar bill, refers directly to the serpent. In the book of Revelations, it's chapter 13 that the dragon and his destructive power are introduced, but that destructive power involves the use of money. In Revelation 13 it says, he also forced everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on his right hand or upon his forehead, so that no one could buy or sell unless he had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of his name. Now the Declaration of Independence was signed by 56 men, over 50 of whom were Masons, some Grand Masters. Their original meeting place was none other than the Green Dragon Tavern in Boston, which Daniel Webster said was the headquarters of the American Revolution. So the whole of the American Revolution starts in a tavern which bears the name the Green Dragon. We wonder if that green dragon was swallowing a human being. Now all cults, all fraternities, all churches, all denominations have their symbols. We know the symbols and we know what we're looking at, whether it's a church, a synagogue, a mosque, whether it's a policeman, or whether it's a fireman, or whether it's a nurse. We know things by their symbols. So fascism, what are the symbols of fascism? One might think it's the swastika. Actually it is not. The symbols of international fascism are much older than that. And the key symbol, the cardinal symbol of the fascist movements of the world, is a bundle of rods with a hatchet in the middle of them. This is called the fasce, or the fasces. It's an old Roman symbol, but it even predates the Romans. Where do we find it? On the back of the Congress room. The Freemasonic monopoly of government positions continued for at least the first 100 years of United States history. According to a 1924 census, even in that year, the Senate had a membership which was 60% Freemason. But what worries me more is why, of all the symbols that you could possibly choose, the symbols for international fascism are there in the Senate room at the back. Now, James W. Wardner, in his book on Holy Alliances, says, our first president was a Mason, sworn into office by the Grand Master of New York on a Bible taken from a Masonic altar, that of St. John's Lodge No. 1. The Bible used in the ceremony was brought there by John Morton, Marshal of the Day from St. John's Lodge, of which he was the worshipful master. Thus was laid the cornerstone of our country and forever of our government. This same Bible, used for Washington's inauguration, was used to swear in Masonic presidents Warren Harding in 1921 and Dwight Eisenhower in 1953. And what the good doctor fails to tell you is that when George Bush, in more recent times, asked for his Bible, he specifically asked for 3 Bibles, the Masonic 3, and laid his hand on 3 Bibles, and that is another promises and your allegiances symbol. In the public domain. If you have your fingers crossed behind your back, so to speak, what good are your promises? Well, from their own works, here's a little book that Freemasons use. This is just one of their little manifesto books that they're all given. It's called the Duncan's Ritual. The Duncan's Ritual of Freemasonry. It's given to neophytes so that they can learn about their rituals, and it's full of interesting pictures to show them what to do when they're in the lodge. And in books just like this one, in the Duncan's Ritual, you find captions like this. You find instructions, and you find oaths. I will aid and assist a companion Royal Archmason when engaged in any difficulty, and espouse his cause, whether it be right or wrong. A companion Royal Archmason's secrets shall remain as secure and inviolable in my breast as in his own. Murder and treason not accepted. Here at the G7 summit, you've got the whole picture in one. You've got the Illuminati pyramid in the center with its spokes radiating out. And who are the gang of criminals sitting around it? We've got Francis Mitterrand, we've got Bill Clinton of America and Tony Blair, and other minions of the Atlantean warlocks. And the G, the G7, the G8. The G is the famous Masonic G, seen on every Masonic lodge. And what is a summit? A summit meeting, a peak meeting. We're meeting on the floor of the house. These are Masonic terms. Pick up a book on it and find out. In my book, and also in the presentation, Weapons of Mass Deception Behind the New World Order, we go very much into this. It's part of the Origins and Oracles series. We show the actual connections between the Bush dynasty and the fraternities of Freemasonry and the Illuminati. Peter Tompkins, in his book Secret of the Great Pyramid, quotes the great Manly Palmer Hall, who said, not only were many of the founders of the U.S. Masons, but they received aid from a secret and august body existing in Europe, which helped them to establish the United States for, he says, a peculiar and particular purpose known only to the initiated few. But the conspiracy is an old one. It's not something new. Sir Thomas More, in 1478, in the 1500s, almost at the time of the Tudors, he writes, everywhere do I perceive a certain conspiracy of rich men seeking their own advantage under that name and pretext of the Commonwealth. So here's the Sir Thomas More, a friend of Henry Tudor, clearly showing us that we have two realities here. We've got the fronts that these people hide behind, be it the Commonwealth or communism or eugenics or Nazism or fascism. These isms and ologies are merely fronts. They're easy to create. But what goes on behind these fronts? What goes on behind the scenes? Now, many books have been written charting this concept of bloodline. It's become a cottage industry almost, going into the Holy Blood and the Holy Grail and the legends of the Holy Family. And this is the book that started it all, The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail, by Begent and Lay and Lincoln. And it was a bestseller, and it's a book well worth reading, because again, as a bestseller, it went into the subject of secret societies and their ancestry, and how they operate in the world behind closed doors, and also out in the open. But unless we learn to see it, unless we become literate to the symbols and the emblems that they use, and something about also their philosophies, they could be operating right in front of us and we wouldn't know it. We might even be conspiring in helping them. William Bramley, in his masterpiece, Gods of Eden, writes, the Sumerians state that the first human kings on earth were the offspring of the custodial rulers who mated with the human women. Those matings entitled the half-human offspring to become the early monarchs on the earth. Now the phoneme for a king is Rex. But RX is also the symbol that refers to royalty and also to the Rose Cross, or the Rosicrucians. And some people think, like Lawrence Gardner, they're trying to establish the fact that this RX was in fact the famous mark of Cain. And Cain, as we know from this presentation, is the serpent. We also have the symbols of the red carpet. The red carpet, which is commonly used by the royals, is a symbol of the bloodline. Bloodline is very important to the royals. And the rolling of the red runner that the queen or the king or the dignitaries walk on is their symbol. That's where it comes from. It's old Semitic tradition that we are the bloodline that starts in the past and goes through us and continues into the future. So when you happen to see certain politicians in America, those who are meant to have fought wars against these dynasties and monarchs of the old world, still walking on the red carpet, still sitting on the red square, we've got some questions. In Subversive Use of Sacred Symbolism, presentation of the Origins and Oracle series, we go into that more deeply, what the symbol of the red carpet really entails and why it's so used in the world by those who are not officially connected to the royal dynasties of old. And the handshake and the red carpet, it's a one-party state. Heads they win, tails we lose. A one-party state. The same occult symbols, the same occult agenda. A carefully crafted dialectic. And they've all got allegiances. Just like any mafioso or gang that has its rules, its regulations, and its codes, so do the heads of state and the members of the elites. In the emerald tablets of Thoth, the Atlantean, we read, "Speak I of ancient Atlantis, speak of the days of the kingdom of shadows, speak of the coming of the children of shadows. Out of the great deep they were called by the wisdom of the earthman. In the form of man they moved amongst us, but only to sight were they as men. Serpent-headed when the glamour was lifted, crept they into councils, taking the form, were like unto men, slaying by their arts the chiefs of the kingdoms, taking their form and ruling over man, to destroy man and rule in his place." In the book of Enoch, chapter 15, "And now the giants, who are produced from the spirit and flesh, shall be called evil spirits upon the earth, because they are born from men and from the holy watchers in their beginning and primal origin. They shall be evil spirits on the earth, and evil spirits they shall be called. And the spirits of the giants will afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work destruction on the earth and cause trouble. And these spirits shall rise up against the children of men and against the women.